Welcome into our Birmingham studios, everybody. I am Chris Brees on College Football Saturday. We are awaiting Bryan Harsin's live post-game press conference for the Auburn Tigers after their 34-10 loss to Georgia at Jordan-Hare Stadium this afternoon. We have complete team coverage across the entire Southeast Conference here on College Football Saturday. And with that, Auburn knew going into this game it would be a gargantuan task against a very stout Georgia defense. And Auburn tried to hang in as best as they could, as long as they could. But once early in that third quarter hit, Georgia had a big play, and it was lights out.
We'll go to the air to start this one and dial up the deep ball. McConkey is open, and McConkey is gone. Touchdown, Georgia. The mailman delivers.
The story on Stetson Bennett, the quarterback, is he wore a postman's hat to all his Elite 11 camps in high school and got that nickname, the mailman, and he certainly did deliver it there early in the third when Auburn was down 17-3. It really wasn't that far out of reach. Auburn had been driving a lot, couldn't get any points on the board. Georgia went up 24-3, and that was all she wrote. We have complete team coverage again here across the SEC and a massive SEC showdown coming up, but Stetson Bennett absolutely won this game for the Georgia Bulldogs.
We hadn't played a true road game, or I haven't, because of COVID last year. And, I mean, we went to Bryant-Denny, but, I mean, when they played, I don't even know what they played. I was focused, but they played something on the Jumbotron before the game, and it got crazy. And they told us that it was going to be like that, but, I mean, wow, that was so fun. That was awesome.
How are you?
It is a long day of College Football Saturday here on CBS 42, and our team coverage continues tonight with the Auburn Tigers. Taylor Kaufman is on the field at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Jim Dunaway will join me for full analysis of that Auburn and Georgia game, as well as that Texas A&M matchup with Alabama. Dee Jackson is live in College Station. We will get to all of these stories coming up here again on College Football Saturday as we continue to await Bryan Harsin's post-game press conference. We'll begin College Football Saturday on the other side of this break.
This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday, presented by Pepsi.
I think one thing the Auburn faithful were hanging their hat on tonight was the fact that 3 of the last 4 Auburn coaches in their first ever game against Georgia beat the Bulldogs, but Kirby Smart and Stetson Bennett made sure that Bryan Harsin did not make it 4 out of 5 as Georgia comes to Jordan-Hare and wins their 5th straight game against Auburn 34-10. Meanwhile, we still have another big-time, prime-time matchup at Kyle Field and College Station in about 1 hour here on CBS 42. Alabama, the #1 team in the country, trying to keep pace with what we saw the Georgia Bulldogs just do to Auburn. They're going to kick off with A&M again here at 7 o'clock, the top of the hour here on CBS 42. In the meantime, we're going to break down this Auburn-Georgia matchup a little bit more as we wait for Bryan Harsin's live post-game press conference. Look, Auburn knew everything was going against them in this game. They were up against it on maybe what people are calling the best team in the country with that Georgia defense, having not given up a single point since back on week 3 against South Carolina. So going in, Bryan Harsin knew a lot was going to have to go his way. And on that first drive of the game, Auburn made it look like it was really easy. Bo Nix was in rhythm. He was spreading the ball around. They drove the field, but it was a big reason why they lost this game because they couldn't turn 7 points into these drives. They got a field goal early, and then Georgia really flexed their running game muscles. Amir White, first touchdown on the board there, made it 10-3 Georgia early in the second quarter. And then Bennett to A.D. Mitchell for 3 yards, made it 17-3 Georgia. So you're thinking this game is getting away from Auburn. We're at a critical point here late in the second quarter. They're going for it on 4th down. Many people agreed with the call, and I think a lot were upset that there was not a pass interference call there. Clearly a hold on the back arm of the wide receiver for Auburn. They don't get the call. So it's 17-3 at the half. We showed you the score that made it 24-3. Auburn did not quit, though. Tank Bigsby was tough. That's the first touchdown Georgia had given up in 172 minutes of football, 24-10. But Georgia's run game simply could not be stopped, and that's the reason why they won the football game, folks. Zamir White, one more time. Final score here, once again, Georgia, they cover that 14.5-point spread easily. 34-10 is the final there. Stenson Bennett was plenty good enough, 231 yards and 2 touchdowns. So let's bring Jim Dunaway, the host of the Next Round Live, with us there outside the stadium at Jordan-Hare. Jim, the one stat I keep going back to is the last 12 winners of this game, Auburn, Georgia, the team who ran the ball better won the game, and Georgia had 200 yards rushing.
Boy, that's 100% correct. Consider this. Not one Auburn run today went for double digits. Not one run went for 10 yards or more today, and that's not how Auburn has won the games in this rivalry game for 126 times now. So, you know, you can come here to bury Bo Nix, and there were some errant throws today. There were some drop balls, but to me, until you can develop some kind of running game, this offense is never going to be what it needs to be to win consistently in the Southeastern Conference. Now, you're playing a Georgia defense that I can't wait to see play a great offense. I'm not sure they've played a great offense yet, but that defense is legit. That front seven is unbelievable, and they are every bit that number 2 ranking that they have right now in the country.
What do you think about the play calling on a lot of that? I personally did not have any problem with the 4th down and a lot of other decisions that Brian Harsin made.
Yeah, not at all. You know, that first drive to me, you know, was it a perfect throw by Bo that they ended up settling for a field goal? No, it wasn't a perfect throw, but I thought that was a catchable ball. Should have been a touchdown for Auburn and set the tone for the day. You settle for a field goal. By the time you're down and you get that offsides, them jumping into the neutral zone, and you decide not to take the 3 and you get it half the distance and you go for the touchdown, that's what you've got to do there, because this Georgia defense, at that point, 14 might as well have been 28 or 35 points. You needed touchdowns, and that could have been a big momentum switch going to the locker room. You don't get it. Questionable call on a DPI there, that you don't get the flag at your own home stadium, and you go to the locker room down and you never dig out of that hole. It's just a tough defense and a tough day for Auburn.
All right, Jim, stick tight. We will get back to you there in a little bit. It was clear that Georgia had the horses to be a top program, and they showed it with all the talent they had on that field. And you could have picked any number of players of the game in this game, but Taylor Kaufman back with us live here at Jordan-Hare Stadium on the field. It seemed pretty obvious on offense. There was no answer for one receiver in specific.
Absolutely, Chris. Georgia's Ladd McConkey, he's a 6-foot receiver. He went 5 for 7 for 135 yards, including that 60-yard touchdown. Now, that touchdown is what sparked Georgia's offense in the 3rd quarter. He didn't get a ton of targets, as you heard, 7 in the game, but the ones he did, he made things happen. He's tough as nails. Also a redshirt freshman. He just couldn't be stopped. So he's going to be a good one to have for Georgia for the years to come. 135 yards, people, and a 60-yard touchdown. A big day for him, and Auburn just really didn't have an answer for that one. We're going to have a closer look at Auburn's defense and offense later in the show, but for more on everything else, we'll send it back to you, Chris.
The top players making the top plays in the top games. That's why they win ball games. How about UAB, their 2nd game ever at Protective Stadium? They want to forget about that nasty loss to Liberty last week. The good news is they're back in conference play, and Grayson Cash is doing things that you usually don't see in a football game. How about a 100-yard interception return for a touchdown? UAB was up 3, not anymore. They're up 24-14 at the half. And then Dylan Hopkins, he came in at quarterback for Tyler Johnston. He was ineffective, and Hopkins has been really good lately. And UAB, that's the way you play at the new stadium. Final score here, 31-14. No reason to think that UAB is still not top dogs in Conference USA. Jacksonville State's in an interesting spot because, well, people are not used to this team losing 3 of their first 5 games. And the unique thing about this team is it's their first ever game in a new conference, the ASUN. They're taking on Stephen F. Austin, and early, it looked like playing in this new conference was going to be tough because Austin made it a 14-7 game, but Zarek Cooper responded with an 18-yard touchdown pass to Ahmad Edwards. Jacksonville State had a lead at halftime, and they had it in the third quarter until Stephen F. Austin came back, and they have the lead right now late in the fourth quarter. The score is Stephen F. Austin 24, Jacksonville State 21. We will have all of those highlights coming up on our postgame show after the Alabama and Texas A&M game. Those cheerleaders are ready for the CBS 42 cameras as they are awaiting their Crimson Tide to come on for on-field and warm-ups against 7 p.m. Alabama and Texas A&M primetime here on CBS 42.
This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday, presented by Pepsi.
It is always business as usual for the Alabama Crimson Tide, right? That's what Nick Saban wants his guys to feel like every single week. This might as well be Bryant-Denny Stadium instead of Kyle Field at Texas A&M in College Station, because Alabama is so focused. There they are, getting off the bus a little while ago, getting ready. That 7 p.m. kick against Texas A&M, it's easily going to be the latest game they have all year long. You got to wonder what those players have been doing mentally to stay prepared all day. And we're wondering, D. Jackson had all day to soak in all that great atmosphere there on Kyle Field. Live with us out there at College Station.
I got to tell you, this is one of the great atmospheres in all of college football. I mean, this is one of those places where you see a lot of off-kilter things, and A&M has so many different traditions. So I had an opportunity to hit the streets and ask some of the student body, what's going on with all these crazy things that you guys do here in College Station? What is Fish Camp?
Fish Camp is like a camp that they have for the freshmen, where all the freshmen learn all the traditions. So I think I'm going to be pretty good because I went to Fish Camp.
When the Aggies score, I score, so like I get to give her a kiss.
I just go with my friends. I don't go with boys.
So does that mean you're not going to go with them now?
Well, I'm not going with him tomorrow.
Hey, can you explain the 12th man?
Oh, okay. So, there was a football game, and then I don't know. Somebody got injured, and then they were like, oh no, we don't have enough people.
So someone actually from the crowd suited up and got ready to come on the field in the event that they were needed.
That's why at the football games, everybody in the stands up the whole game, so that way we can support the football team.
Who can tell me what the midnight yell is?
That's the night before the game where like all of our yell leaders go on the field and we meet there at midnight and just like kind of like run through our cheers and like get excited about the game.
We don't know what cheerleaders are at all.
Yeah, no, we don't have cheerleaders. We just have our midnight yell leaders. Or our yell leaders, sorry.
How many yell leaders are there? 5. There are 5?
And they're all really hot.
It's the 2 juniors and then the 3 seniors.
Who is the highest ranking member of the Corps of Cadets?
Reveille. It's the dog.
What is your favorite thing about Reveille?
Well, if I had her in a class, that'd be awesome, because if she barks, that means the class is let go. So that'd be kind of cool.
Well, I guess she's barking right now. If this is your bus, so I guess I won't hold you up. You know, one thing I learned about Reveille is that when she's with her cadets, if she falls asleep on one of the cadets' bed, they have to actually sleep on the floor because she is the highest ranking cadet in the Corps. Another thing that I got an opportunity to see here at Kyle Field, I was just telling Ron Gaines, our photographer here, I felt like I was at a parade. The cadets come around and they march around the stadium, and then there's this, I don't know what you call it, a group of horses that come around, and man, that's pretty interesting. And I just got to tell you guys, I feel sorry for the guys who have to clean up the mess after those guys make that. There will be a mess out on the field here that we will be watching all night. Hopefully the Tide will be able to bring it on home and put on a show here at Kyle Field. Reese, let's send it back to you.
4-man rush. Manziel deep right side, tipped. Could be intercepted. Sunseri has it. Vinny Sunseri, who returned one for a touchdown against Vatech, needs a block, needs one more, spins, he's got a touchdown!
There's been no shortage of great memories for Alabama at Texas A&M, and this was back in the day when the Tide knew what it was like to lose to A&M, because you saw Johnny Manziel right there. He had beaten the Tide in Tuscaloosa the year before. Now, A&M is going to need all sorts of playmakers, maybe a lot of them we haven't even heard of yet. realistically, if they want to hang with Alabama in this game tonight, Jim Dunaway, next round live, back with us here. You look at the game, Jim, you know all the talent that Alabama has, and then you look at Texas A&M. Do they have the horses, and do they have the quarterback to score enough points on Alabama is the big question.
Yeah, which problem you want to start with? Let's start with the Aggies offense. The QB2, Zach Calzada, he's averaging 143 yards of passing offense in the 2 SEC games. That's not going to beat Alabama, right? Then you got to worry about the Aggies pass defense that gave up 408 yards passing to Will Rogers last week of Mississippi State. That's not going to beat Alabama. So you're struggling on both sides of the football. This better have been a great week of practice in Aggie land for Jimbo Fisher if they're going to stay in this game tonight.
You know, Brian Robinson's banged up at running back. Jace McClellan is out for the year. Is there any reason to believe that this Alabama run game will struggle against A&M? Because it feels like to me A&M's defensive front has to be impeccable in this game to have a chance.
Well, I mean, Brian Robinson's coming off the biggest game of his career where they let him carry it 36 times. And then here comes Roydell Williams. I mean, this is Alabama recruiting at its best, right? Roydell Williams is now coming in as sort of your third or fourth option at running back. And I think every time he's touched the ball this year, he's been electric. I think the ceiling is very high for that guy, both as a runner and a pass catcher out of the backfield. So I'm excited to see Roydell Williams maybe get a bigger role tonight for the Tide.
So Alabama, Roydell Williams, Hueytown's finest. We'll see if the Crimson Tide have what it takes to go on the road. We've seen them do it so many times before. Jim will check back in with you here a little bit later on College Football Saturday. Auburn tried to run the ball as best they could against Georgia, but they could not do it. And that Georgia defense, you cannot say enough great things about how stout they were. We'll talk more about that game on the other side of this break. And just because the game ended poorly for Auburn didn't mean that their fearless leader of basketball wasn't doing his best to pump up this crowd. Bruce Pearl and the basketball team are right in the thick of it, and the best part about all of it is somebody had a crazy idea where, you know what, how do we rile up these fans? How about we all go topless? Yes, that is Bruce Pearl next to Cam Newton, who didn't go topless, by the way, to try to rev up these Auburn fans. They didn't win the game. They sure had fun, especially early on.
This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday, presented by Pepsi.
There weren't a whole lot of moments in this game where you felt like Auburn really, truly had a chance to win, but there was a moment early in the third where they had hope. They were driving into Georgia territory. They ran the ball on 3rd and long. They didn't get it on 4th down, and then right after that, dagger from Bennett at the quarterback spot. You saw the play of the game earlier. It turned into the drive of the game when Auburn could not score points on what could have been a very different ball game. Instead of making it a close game, Auburn ends up losing by 20, and it's just the latest of a demoralizing path that Auburn has had against their 3 biggest rivals, you could argue, LSU, Georgia, and Alabama. But they got the win against LSU earlier. That'll keep the Bluebirds certainly off of Brian Harson's back for right now. The loss to Georgia, and then, of course, that Iron Bowl coming up on November 27th. And look, we're always used to this Auburn defense having to make the plays in games. It was that way under Gus Malzahn, and it's starting to maybe a little bit look that way under Brian Harsin. Taylor Kaufman back with us live.
Hey, Brees, everyone talks about Georgia's defense. They're the best in college football, only allowing 23 points scored against them all season. The last 2 games have been shutouts, but we really do have to tip our hats to Auburn's defense today. Georgia's averaged 46 points a game against SEC opponents this year, and Auburn held them to 17 in the first half. Georgia went 5 for 12 on 3rd down conversions, which was big for the Tigers to stay in this one. 0 for 1 there on 4th down conversions for Georgia. The Bulldogs opened up the run game a little more in the second half and started to pull away there, adding another 17 points. But again, the 34 points that they scored was below their average that they've been putting up against SEC opponents. So a lot to be proud of for Auburn today. We'll take a look at their offense coming up a little later in the show. But for now, Brees, we'll send it back to you.
46 yards on the ground for Auburn, 29 attempts is all you need to know. Okay, there's a major chase going on for the college football playoff. We're about 1 month away from our first ranking. Iowa's in a tough game right now with Penn State. We'll take you out to games across the country when we come back as Alabama gets ready for that 7 o'clock game at Kyle Field. A&M has not had a whole lot to cheer for the last 2 weeks. They've lost back-to-back games in the SEC. But you know that crowd is going to make everything very deafening for Bryce Young and that Alabama offense, trying to stay focused, mentally preparing for this game about 25 minutes away.
This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday, presented by Pepsi.
Crazy to think that we're about halfway through this college football season right now. We're going to have a playoff ranking here in about 4 weeks. And this week is really going to shape the way college football looks because number 3 right there is playing a home game in the Big Ten against another Big Ten team, number 4, Penn State. And Iowa, Penn State, you think is always going to be a defensive battle. Well, it was for about 55 minutes of this game. Penn State held the lead the majority. Iowa came back and made it a 4-point game. And then moments ago, Spencer Petras. People talk so much about game manager quarterbacks. Well, when your QB can be clutch like Petras is right here, you're going to find success. Iowa right now is taking the lead on Penn State. They are up 23-20. Penn State has one last gasp. 2 minutes left. It's fourth down on their own 8-yard line. The Red River rivalry, Red River shootout, showdown, whatever you want to call it, you always know that Oklahoma and Texas are going to put on a heck of a ball game. And get this, Spencer Rattler, a Heisman Trophy finalist, was out because he was inefficient. In came Caleb Williams. They were down by 18 points in the second half, and they masterfully had a comeback. And look at this. They're just trying to run out the clock to maybe get a field goal with 5 seconds left, and they bust the game wide open. Kennedy Brooks, 33 yards. Oklahoma wins on the last play of the game, 55-48. Steve Sarkisian cannot believe it. In the SEC, Arkansas and Ole Miss are coming off just demoralizing losses to number 1 and number 2 in the country. Sam Pittman has the Hogs back, and how crazy was this game? Well, how about 3 touchdowns in the final 1 minute and 22 seconds of this game? KJ Jefferson got the first for Arkansas, tied the game, but then Matt Corral about 20 seconds later, that touchdown to Braylon Sanders. It's 52-45 Ole Miss, but Arkansas is not done. Last play of the game for the Hogs, Jefferson finds Warren Thompson back of the end zone. They are down 52-51, and Pittman says 2. Yeah, guys, we're going for 2. Let's win this game on the road against Ole Miss and redeem ourselves. And Jefferson looked like he may have had a chance. There's a pass rush, and how else would a game for Arkansas end but this way in complete heartbreak? 52-51 is the final. So it begs the question, Jim, you're back with us here live at Auburn. You wanted to see how this kind of game would play out. Do you still believe Ole Miss, after seeing Auburn and Georgia as well, is the second best team in the SEC West behind Alabama?
Well, first let me say I agree with Sam Pittman going for 2 there because you have to go for 2 so quick now in overtime. So you're exhausted. You've got a chance to walk off and leave Oxford with a victory. Loved him going for 2. It didn't work out. He may catch some criticism or not. And then hats off to Pittman and Kiffin both after demoralizing losses last week to play that kind of football game, 52-51. It says a lot about both those coaches. Now to answer your question, yes, I do. I think Ole Miss is the second best team in the West. They got it handed to them in Tuscaloosa, but that shows you just how important offense is right now in college football. I know Iowa and Georgia is doing it with defense, but if you can score points, you have a chance to beat just about anybody. So I still go LSU as the second best team in the West.
You've seen Oklahoma, you've seen Penn State and Iowa, all these undefeated teams right now. Are any of them able to match up with Alabama and Georgia?
Right now I would say no, and I'm interested, Chris, on where America would lean on Georgia or Alabama right now because they attack it both so differently. You know, I like Alabama's defense, but really Alabama's offense is the calling card, right? And Georgia's defense, You know, I like Georgia's offense, but their defense is the calling card. How good is Georgia's defense against an offense like Alabama is something we want to see down the road. Maybe we get to see it in the SEC championship. Maybe it's so nice we get to see it twice in the college football playoffs. But right now, I don't think there's anybody that's close to those two. As I watch Iowa and Penn State play today, they're number 3 and number 4. I don't think they rise up to that level. I think the closest team to Georgia and Alabama is actually one-loss Ohio State.
Yeah, and if we do see Georgia and Alabama, you know people are going to call it. They love the term game of the century. It could be number 1 and number 2. A lot could happen before the SEC championship, and they both have by far the best talent in the country. We already know that. And one of those players for Alabama is Malachi Moore, a sophomore from Hewitt-Trussville High School. But we've never talked to him before because he's never been allowed to speak with the media until now. We get to know Malachi coming up here on College Football Saturday as Alabama is out and ready, warming up on the field at Kyle Field. The Tide faithful, they travel everywhere. They could be going to Alaska, they could go to Maine, they could go to Russia if they wanted to, and they'd still pack a house. Expect that crimson red to be out in full force at Kyle Field tonight.
This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday, presented by Pepsi.
You want to know what Alabama's players have gotten so good at over the years, probably better than any other team in the country, is they have nerves of steel when they go on the road. That environment right there on the field where D. Jackson is live right now is absolutely insane. And D, you can't even hear me right now. Imagine what these players are going to be feeling like for this Crimson Tide team tonight, and it doesn't affect them.
Well, you know, Breeze, that's the good part about it. You know, we're kind of like in sync, just like a great basketball team. You throw the rock, I receive it, right? But this Alabama team right now, as they get set for a huge matchup tonight, they know that one thing. They understand their task every week. Nick Saban is a master recruiter, and of course, he loves defensive backs. Well, he's found an excellent one out of Trussville in Malachi Moore.
He's just getting better every week.
He is. Getting an opportunity to start as a true freshman at Alabama comes with a lot of pressure, and it takes a special player to be able to handle the intense spotlight.
I had to be mature a lot and focus in and prepare like a veteran. And I think that was the biggest thing for me because first college game and first college season, you don't know what to expect in an atmosphere like that.
Tide defensive back Malachi Moore is stepping up and playing well beyond his years. During his freshman campaign, the Trussville native racked up 44 tackles, 3 interceptions, and returned a fumble for a touchdown on his way to the SEC All-Freshman team. But a late season back injury would eventually slow him down physically. But Moore still was giving his all in order to help his teammates.
Playing through the injury, I just wanted to be there for my teammates and do the best that I can, and as long as I could play, I felt like it was okay for me to play.
Shows you how relentless he is as a person. You know, you have a ton more respect for him then. You see how much he loves and cares about the game and how much he's really putting into this. And, you know, we have a lot of guys that are like that on our team, so that's what makes our bond so strong.
Moore got off to a hot start in 2021 with an interception in the opening game against Miami. But it's not just his athletic gifts that are bringing him success in year number 2.
I would say I have a better understanding of the playbook. I have a better understanding of what multiple positions do, even sometimes like the linebackers and certain calls that we have. And I think that's been the biggest thing for me, just so I can see what everybody else's job is, and if they're not in the right spot, I can get them in the right spot. And I think that's the thing I work on the most.
And the fans are going crazy here at Kyle Field. They're set for a huge matchup. Hey, we'll have plenty more when we come back.
This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday, presented by Pepsi.
CBS is going to have national coverage coming up here at 7 o'clock, so we may or may not get to Brian Harsin's live post-game press conference. We're still waiting for him to come to the podium, and the entire Auburn faithful was waiting for this offense to find the end zone the entire afternoon against the Georgia Bulldogs. Taylor Kaufman back with us at a very quiet Jordan-Hare Stadium now, and that was the story of the game, Taylor.
Yeah, Chris, the offense has been struggling a little bit all season. They did get a little bit of confidence getting on the board first with that field goal. But remember that Georgia State game? It was all field goals until the very end. The Tigers have had a hard time finding the end zone, and that's kind of been a reoccurring theme. They had some good moments today, but just couldn't string them together when it mattered. We had balls bouncing off the receiver's hands. Bo Nix showed off his legs again, making some good plays to march down the field, but other times he seemed to rely on leaving the pocket maybe a little too much and had to throw the ball away. But he had some big gains to march them down the field, and I don't know if maybe guys were closing in on him or maybe he just got a little too much confidence after that LSU game. Who's to say? Auburn had looks at the end zone but couldn't get it in there. They finally scored a touchdown to end the third quarter. The Tigers were 1 for 3 on touchdown attempts. And against a defense like Georgia, you're just going to have to be a little better than that offensively. Hopefully Auburn can put it together. They go on the road next week to Arkansas, that game at 11 a.m. Back to you, Brees.
All right, Taylor, thank you. Georgia executed their keys to the game. We'll see if Alabama will execute their keys to the game. Jim and I will divulge into that coming up on College Football Saturday.
This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday, presented by Pepsi. This is CBS 42's Keys to the Game, sponsored by Robertson Banking Company.
A&M does not have the statistical numbers everybody thought they would have when they were the number 6 team in the country. And you can make the excuse that Haynes King is out at quarterback and Zach Calzada had to come in. But these numbers are very polar opposite from Alabama. So you'd expect the Tide to roll. But then you start thinking about this Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher relationship, and he might be the closest friend to Nick Saban when it comes to former assistants.
This is all around, you know, a really, really good team, maybe the best team we've played to this point from a personnel standpoint. So this is a game that, you know, we really got to get our mind looking forward to the challenge that we have, which is going to be pretty significant.
They do a great job. They're fun. As you watch them, they're extremely talented, but they're very fundamentally sound. When you watch them, they're a very fundamentally sound football team. And that's the key. Like I always say, ordinary things. They do the ordinary things very, very well.
All right, Jim. A lot of these Alabama games seem very simplistic when it comes to keys to the game. Bama's got to do what right to win this game?
Well, usually it's a quarterback having a dynamic game that upsets Nick Saban in Alabama. I don't think this quarterback, Calzada, has it in him. So if the Aggies are going to pull the upset, it'll be Isaiah Spiller having a Superman-like game. For me, it's all about Alabama. Are they going to sleepwalk after a big win at home against Ole Miss and keep this close in the first half and then pull it away? I expect a dominating performance from Alabama coming up here in about a minute or so on CBS.
3 100-yard rushing games for Spiller. If they want to do anything on offense, he's going to have to be the guy. You think this Bama defensive front is good enough to stop the run?
I do, but I think that's Texas A&M's only path to victory.
All right, Jim, make sure you stay with us for our post-game show. We'll have Nick Saban live on the air for the Crimson Tide. College Football Saturday is not done here with you on CBS 42. Time now for national coverage of Alabama, Texas A&M.